Good morning, everybody. This is Jean here. Jean and Ian Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. Coming into our guest room office. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
What do you think?
This
Yeah.
is me. It's
Aw.
absolutely wonderful, beautiful, outstanding. I love it.
Well, we
I'm
came,
very pleased.
yeah, because green and blue are your favorite,
My favorites,
yeah, your favorite colors. So we, as I was saying to you before, this is the guest room / Ian's office over here. And Ian, we inherited these blue walls.
They're beautiful. I like them.
Yeah, and we inherited
They go
these.
with everything that I've.
Yeah, we inherited the curtains too, didn't we? The curtains were
Yes.
here. Yeah. So we decided not to change anything in this room. Ian built the desk because he always had an office. But this is the guest room / office. And yeah, we're really pleased with this. Is a queen size bed. And my quilt as you go, hexagon quilt, which I made into a bedspread. Do you like the green?
And we have some pink and red, if ever you can find it anywhere.
Where? Oh yes, yeah,
Light
yeah.
Pink. No, there's pink and red in
Yeah, in the floral.
There's some,
Yeah.
which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, this is this was a hexagon
Lights.
plate template that I had gotten, and I just sewed them together with a zigzag stitch. You can see my playlist. This is a lovely Northcott fabric line, and then I just made the pillow shams just up there that out of the same fabric as the dust ruffle. It's not a dust ruffle, this is a quilted bedspread. I've done a lot of videos on this before, but it's all done. And I think my last video I said I think I wanted just a pop of green. So I'll show you later on in this video how I actually sewed on that rickrack. Now, as you know, we were in a quandary as to how I was going to make this reversible. This is the back side of the quilt as you go. This is the front. This is the back. So it could be reversible, but as you see here, I put the I will explain it in the video to come. I put the border more of on a box type of area as opposed to the ruffle. But there's no raw edges. It's completely reversible. Ian's doing business. Sorry to interrupt you. But yeah, it's very
Busy as a bee. This is a honeycomb.
Yeah.
Just like the bees have their hexagonal storage of honey in the honeycomb. Busy as a bee, that's us.
Yeah, you're busy.
Jean and Ian.
Yeah. So this is our guest room, and on this wall, Ian put up all of our family photographs over the years.
We were busy bees.
We were busy bees.
Making babies.
Making tons of babies. So these are just a few of them. We would get a family photograph. There's this was when Maxwell was our 10 children. Maxwell was just the baby, or is he the baby there? Oh yeah, he's the baby there. There's Maxwell, 24 years ago. This is when our daughter Malia was married. I think I've shown you these pictures before. And then the more weddings we had, the more in-laws we got. So the latest one is downstairs. There are now 40 of us Trueloves, just our children and grandchildren and spouses. And this was taken in Canada when we just had our 6 little boys. I'm sure you've seen that before. And then this one here, that was taken when our son Luke had just gotten married. And Luke and their little boys there. And then these are 4 little children when we lived in England, our first 4 babies. And then this was about 5 years ago, this picture. We've had some more grandchildren and more daughter-in-laws. And that is when we had 3 children. The only time in my life I had short dark hair. And then that was when our 9th baby was born, Niles. So yeah, we have a ton of these pictures. So we just stuck them up in here. because we ran out of walls everywhere
How
else.
about the door quilt? Look at the reds and the...
Oh yeah. Well, I think I've shown you these before. On all of our doors, I've put these little quilts. I did a tutorial on this one. Oh, and this is interesting. This is a honeycomb that I've done, just like the other one, just like that quilted bedspread, but in completely scrap fabrics. I'm using 5-inch squares. And the same exact method, just sewn together. This one, and I did not cut off the edges. There's that one. And that's Maxwell's place. I did move my quilt, my kaleidoscope quilt. I moved it into the hallway here. And then I have another quilt that I made, I don't know, 20 years ago, hanging there. And then another hexagonal quilt. I'm sure you've seen it. But yeah, we're very pleased with the bedspread as it turned out. I will be doing my row along with Jean quilt. I will be getting back to that. The reason I was doing this quilt here is because, as you know, I was ill. I wasn't feeling very well, and I just wanted something very easy and mindless. It ended up easy as such, but it's a big quilt. It's a big queen size quilt with a ton of fabric, but it was sort of mindless, just making the hexagonals. Again, you can see my playlist, and yeah, Ian is busy. All right, Ian.
Definitely.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'll come in here for naps under this wonderful, busy as a bee.
Yeah, yeah, because you put a TV in here.
Quilt.
Yeah, actually, Ian just put a television in here, which is nice. Although we don't watch TV an awful lot in here. But yeah, all right, thank you, Ian.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Well, I hope you guys enjoy this video on how I finished up my quilt. All right, see ya. Bye. So as I showed you, I have put my ruffle on my one side of my quilt and made a really pretty ruffle. That's the side the top of the quilt with all my hexagon shapes. But because I had this raw seam on the back where I just attached the ruffle to the front, what I'm doing now is I've cut another border the exact same width of my ruffle. I have not ruffled it because I do not have enough fabric. I've just taken 1 or 2 pleats actually in it. Now this is the back of my quilt, and as you know, I want to make it reversible. Not that I'm going to have it on the bed reversible all the while, but if it gets tossed up, I want it to have no raw seams in it. This is not a quilt as you know. This is more of a bedspread, and the back of the bedspread is going to have more of a boxed edging as opposed to the front of the quilt, which has a pretty ruffled skirt on it. Okay, so now what I'm doing is, obviously when I put the ruffle of my border print onto the top, I turn it around and I put the right size to the right side, and I sewed the seam, making the ruffles. So there's the top, there's the front or the top of my quilt with a nice ruffled skirt right there. But on the back of it, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm not ruffling it though, but I'm finding the seam here. I'm finding the seam where I'm sandwiching the quilt top, which already has the backing of the ruffle in it. If you can see that, there's that seam with my ruffle. So I'm just making sure the ruffle's out of the way. I'm putting the pretty side of this side to the pretty side, to the back of my quilt, the pretty side, and I'm sandwiching all of this, the batting, the edging of my quilt, the ruffle, and right there, instead of, I don't have enough fabric, I've just made, I've made this sort of boxed area. I will have explained this just a little bit wider, wider, and I've just done sort of like a box pleat just every now and again, but I haven't ruffled it because ruffling, as you know, takes an awfully lot of fabric. So what I'm doing again is my right side of my my border fabric to the right side of the back of my quilt, and I'm making sure I'm pushing all of that stuff, all of that fabric. There's lots of layers there. My machine can do it. I have a heavy needle, but I'm just having to be sure that all of my ruffles are away so I don't catch them. So I'm just doing a few inches at a time. It's a wide seam. It's obviously not 1/4 of an inch to put all this fabric ruffles on. Maybe at some points it's even like an inch. That's fine. I'm having the fabric and the quilt right in front of me, and I'm making sure all the while that my fabric is out, the bottom ruffle is out of the way. So hopefully you understand that. All I'm doing is I'm sandwiching this part of my bedspread here. So I have no raw edges on my bedspread, and it's reversible. I have finished sewing on my ruffle, my front ruffle, which is the top of my quilt, and my back ruffle, which is my boxed part of the back of my quilt, to make this a reversible quilt. Now what I am doing now is I'm adding some green to my blue. You do know that this is a green and a blue quilt, and when I put it on the bed, Ian and I both decided it needed a little bit of an extra, a little pop of green. I really like that, and to cover the sort of the bulk of this seam also, where the ruffle and on the back. So I haven't, if you can see, I have my very, very wide rickrack. I love rickrack. I have not done it on the end here. I have to sew that down because there's quite a lot of bulk there. I'm just going to sew that down by hand. Just take a few stitches. What I have done is I've done one side, the side that's on the ruffle. I am covering the seam, right? I'm covering this seam. Now the seam has a lot of fabric. It's the quilt sandwich. It's the outside ruffle border. It's the inside box border. So there's a lot of seam here. So what I'm doing is I'm going actually with a free motion quilting stitch. I'm laying my rickrack on very, very loosely, as you do, not to pull it at all. I've already done the one side. I've done the most difficult side, which is on the ruffled side here. And I'm being very, very careful the whole time to pull out the bottom. To remember, the bottom section is not attached. It's attached in the corner, but it's not attached here. So I'm very, very careful to pull out this bottom, and I'm to smooth the top like that. So when I'm sewing the seam, when I'm sewing on this rickrack, I'm just hitting the seam in a nice flat way right there. Now you do see I'm using a green on the thread top, and I'm using a white here. You do see the little curvy on the reverse, which is fine. It almost looks like a little bit of a decorative stitch if this ever gets put reversible. I'm not worried about that. Like I say, I have the green thread on top and the white in the bobbin. So you do see that stitching, but that's fine. For the most part, the quilt will be this way on the top of my quilt here. So now what I'm doing is, again, it's a very big quilt, but I'm just working what's in front of me. And as I said, I stitched down one side of my rickrack, and now I'm coming back and stitching the second side. I wanted to get that one side down, and when I'm using rickrack, any rickrack whatsoever, you don't ever just want to sort of pull your rickrack, because it will shrink the fabric just by stitches and stitches. So you just want to lay that down. And as you can see, I've just laid my stitching down. This is a little bit, not hard, but it's a little bit, you know, tough. yeah, tough and hard are the same words, aren't they? To get through these ruffles, just to keep everything nice and square here. But the hardest part is done. So now what I'm doing, again, I just have my free motion quilting foot on, and again, I'm just keeping everything, making sure everything is right in front of me, and I'm just using a free motion quilting stitch. Just my free motion foot, which is, again, the needle's just going up and down. This is just another little tip that I found to make sewing rickrack, make it really look professional. And I'm going to have to go back to fix something that I've just noticed. It may not be glaring to the eye, but when you're sewing on rickrack, you want to be sure that you sew it right to the edge. You want to make sure very carefully that any stitch you do use, you want to go right to the edge, because to my eye, your rickrack needs to be really flat and not curled up on the edges. Now back on this part that I did, I don't like that. It's only about a 1/16 of an inch, but I don't like that look. It's curly, and I'll just go back with another little free motion quilting stitch just on a few of these edges. I didn't catch it as well. I slowed down. I mean, as you saw, I'm going very slowly putting this stitching on my rickrack, and this part on my ruffle here is already stitched on. So when I'm free motion quilting, I'm going very slowly and just taking bite by bite around the very, very edge of my rickrack. Whatever size rickrack, this is jumbo, so it's actually a little bit easier. Whatever size, you just want to make sure that you push that, always the needle down, that you push that edge right under your needle, just so it just lays really beautifully and flat. I think that makes a world of difference. You go very slow. Sometimes you just have to maneuver it and hold it in place right at the edge. I did loosen my presser foot on my Juki here. I did loosen up here the pressure of my presser foot, because this is going through an awfully lot of fabric. I did trim the seam a little bit, but I didn't want to trim it too much because there's a lot of bulk in there. And this rickrack, as you can see, covers the bulk, but it almost like accentuates it a little bit, but that's okay, because it's a nice chunky rickrack, as you can see, and it's a nice substantial quilt that I'm making. So there's a lot of fabric in here, so I quite like the jumbo rickrack. And again, just want to be very careful. Just manipulate the edges, whatever size rickrack, so that you don't get those little curls at the end. Just a little bit, makes it a little bit more professional, the trim. Yeah, thank you.